Each one of us has 24 hours a day. What matters is how we use them. In Estonia, we've created a business environment that lets you thrive, where you can focus on getting things done, where you can realize ideas that make a difference, and where no goal is unachievable.
Good morning and welcome to day 3 of our virtual trade mission to Estonia 2020. We think Estonia is the most advanced digital nation and it is the gateway to the Nordics and the Baltics. Now, this is day 3. As I said, we've already had 2 morning sessions for you in America. For each day, it's the evening for us, coming to you live from Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. Now, in the first days, we covered the overall general business environment in Estonia. We talked about the ICT sector. We talked about the business culture and environment. We looked at the very innovative e-residency program that's been set up by the Estonian government. And that program really is the key to allowing you access to start your company in Estonia, to produce your investments, and to connect with the government and the general society remotely and digitally. Now, yesterday's session was about food and food tech, and we heard from different food providers, food producers in Estonia, categorized by very high quality stuff, fresh products, and just starting to reach the American market right now. Today, we are going to be looking at HealthTech and BioTech. And that's, we're going to be looking at different companies working in that sector, producing and hoping to look further to the American market. My name is Louis Zezeran. I'll be the host for today. And as you may be able to tell from my accent, I am not Estonian. I am indeed Australian. I've lived here for over 12 years now. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a performer. And I have a unique perspective of living in both worlds. And I can tell you my experience from being here for some time now, it's not a bad place to live at all. You might actually like it. So let's do day 3. Now, if you want to ask questions of any of our speakers, if you would like to make contact, if you would like to have one-on-one sessions or just have questions answered, you can use the interface that you're watching right now, the Imprompt Me page. From there, ask your questions. We're going to have representatives from all of these organizations and companies on hand to answer your questions straight away. So put your questions, put your queries into Imprompt Me, and someone relevant will be getting back to you very shortly. Okay, to kick off our morning session of day 3, to give us a general overview of doing business in Estonia, to provide some groundwork stuff, I'd like to welcome to the couches here from Invest Estonia. Let's have Maris Pri. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh.
Good to see you again.
Nice. It's day 3. It's so many of these companies coming through here. It's really nice to see the breadth of experience that we have in Estonia and the high-class companies and services we're offering. So now, you're from Invest Estonia. So tell us about Invest Estonia and Trade Estonia and where this fits in.
So I'm Maris. I am representative of Invest Estonia in US. So hopefully we'll be based in California very soon.
Okay.
So Enterprise Estonia, which is an umbrella organization for both of these subdivisions, Invest Estonia and Trade Estonia, has a purpose of promoting entrepreneurship in Estonia and also attracting foreign investments and helping with the trade of Estonian companies towards export markets. So Invest Estonia has a goal, as the name says, to attract investments, foreign direct investments towards Estonia, and trade is focused more on helping Estonian entrepreneurs to export their products outside of Estonia. But obviously we work closely hand in hand We have another representative in US, James York, who is my partner in crime with from Trade Estonia division.
We talked to him yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. So that's shortly an overview.
Right. So your job is about making sure that investors and other relevant business individuals know about Estonia, know the opportunities, introducing them to what's happening here and making the right connections and so forth.
Exactly. So when we talk about investors, it's not only typical investors in the startup sense that you're putting the cash into the company, but also corporates who are looking forward to bring their divisions to Estonia, to establish their subsidiary here, to establish their company here, and to the trade and to the business from Estonia covering the European market, for example.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, it sounds like a pretty understandable role there. So when you're pitching Estonia, small Estonia, we like to say here, 1.3 million people. That's a country, by the way, guys. 1.3 million people. They get a president and borders, used to have their own money, their own parliament. For 1.3 million, it makes for an interesting environment, let me tell you. But what are the key points that you're pitching to and telling overseas investors and business people about?
It's a very good question of what makes Estonia to stand out. We are a very innovative country. Like innovation is part of our legacy for almost 30 years by now. With the e-government system, we are standing out that we are providing the services to our citizens, and not only to our the Estonians, but also foreign nationalities via e-residency program that you mentioned before as well, to anyone who is interested in doing business in an environment where things are online. What is attractive to from the entrepreneurial side is definitely the good legislation system that we have. For example, Estonia was among the first countries in the world to legalize ride sharing for Uber and Bolt, for example. We do have legislation in place to have robots roaming on the streets, on the sidewalks. We do have a legislation in place, for example, for artificial intelligence, defined what is it and what it's used for and how to handle it. But also tax system. Estonia is known for a very favorable tax system for enterprises, mainly because as long as you reinvest your profit, there is no profit tax. So only when you're taking out the profit from the company, paying out the dividend, is when the tax comes into place.
Right, and maybe I can give some perspective as well. From my view, I run my own business here. I employ about 10 people as an entrepreneur. And what that means in reality for me is that if I don't take the money out of the company, it does not get taxed. So I can, giving invoices, we've got money coming in, that there's not a yearly income tax that's placed on the money sitting in my bank account, which is great. Now, you might say, well, government's got to get their money eventually. Where's the money coming from? It's from the salary tax. Basically, to my simplistic mind, it's whenever you take money out of the company, that's when the government's going to try to get their cut. Maybe dividends, salaries, and so forth. But if you just leave it there, the government wants to inspire that investment, and so they don't actually charge you for it.
Exactly. So there are not too many countries in the world that have this kind of principle that, as long as you reinvest your proceeds back to the growth of your company, there is no tax there. Our good neighbors, Latvians, they adopted it just a few years ago, with our example, obviously. So yeah, I would say the legal structure that we have in place really supporting the takeoff of new technologies that are out there. It's the tax system and also the great minds of Estonians, the bright people that we have here. It's the human capital that is very highly skilled. Majority of them speak at least two languages. English is very commonly used. It's very high use of or knowledge of digital tools, internet being kind of the internet being considered a human right in Estonia, for example.
Yeah, and that English thing, and maybe that can be a factor for US investors and business people who are worried, are you going to come to Eastern Europe and say, hello, do you want to do business with me? You think that this is what you're going to come across. This, I don't speak Estonian, humbly, unfortunately, and it hasn't been a problem for me. As I said, I run a company. All my employees, all the people I work with are Estonian, and we've just worked around it. And certainly there's some things they do. It's easier for them to work with some partners than me. But I really have just seen it as I lack a certain skill. I've got some employees who make up for that skill, and that's all it is. It's not an impediment to life. It's not a roadblock in any way. And, no one sort of looks at you weird. It's just, well, it is what it is, and you do the business. And people are more likely to just want to get on and do the business.
Exactly. And that's the same mentality that we expect, from the government to provide the supportive support system and the structure for the businesses just to get on and do their business as quickly as effectively as possible. And that's the expectation towards the government as well.
Yeah.
Hence, the e-services that we have here in Estonia, it's really something that we consider to be a part of normal everyday life. In some other countries, I think this is something sounds like something from the far future, but the mentality is the same. That that provide us the simple environment to do the business, run in the background. I mean, government services, seamlessly accessible via online anytime that you need those, and then you can focus on growing your business, growing your company.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like the attitude. I mean, even an example I had last week, I had to give my operations officer who realized that she couldn't sign documents. Yeah. So, okay, we've got to give, I think it's called a power of attorney or a similar sort of thing, to that authorization so that she can sign documents on behalf of the company. And yeah, we didn't have to go to an office. We log into the government portal, the entrepreneur's portal. We upload the information. I sign that. Or we all have an ID card that has a SIM chip in it and that it's completely secure and all digital. That's how we log on. That's the authentication we use to sign. And using the government portal, I was able to assign that to her. The state fee was all paid as part of the same workflow. It redirected me to the bank. Okay, bank details good. Back to the government thing. And that's just one small example of, I think that I have only had to go into a government office twice in 3 years. One, because I got my driver's license. Okay, you got to go do an exam, all right? And the only other time was I had to go get my new ID card. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. 99% of all the government services are online, accessible, through your computer, wherever you are, whatever time that you need do the business, and that gives the ease of doing business is one of the reasons why also Estonia is considered among the top countries in the world, in addition to tax competitiveness and like a lot of other arguments around that as well.
I think it is that culture thing you spoke of. And again, I'm coming back to that kind of thing about 1.3 million people and how that affects everyone. To me, that means that Estonia's never had like layers of bureaucracy or even layers in society, really. Estonians are used to I need to do something, I'm going to do it. I need to contact that person, I'm going to do it. And, even I know I can sit in a restaurant or go to the supermarket and, there's the government minister just walking by getting milk as well. It's not weird in Estonia. And I think that's had this on-flow effect of there's a really great business environment here. People just want to get it done. No, there's no problems. I'm just going to go do it.
Well, exactly. It's the cultural mindset of people. First of all, Estonia is such a small market that there's no point of doing only local stuff, which is the foundation of the very strong startup ecosystem that we have here. It's the born global mentality that when you start a business, look outside immediately. But in addition to that, it's like talking less. Under-promising but over-delivering kind of mentality that use less words and show me more actions and then I believe you and keep your promise. That is one of the cultural aspects here as well. When we talk about business culture, it's really staying true to your words.
Yeah, it's very, I sometimes think like in America and maybe more Western countries, it's more like, oh, the first impression is the most important. The first impression is where you need to push forward. And I sometimes think with Estonians, it's about the second impression, actually. The first time, they might be a bit reserved, they might be a bit inward, but second time, they've seen you once, they're like, this guy's all right. And then it's this more directness, and then things get going. And I agree with you, there's a genuineness to it a little bit. Like, okay, they say it, it's going to happen. It's not just this blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, I think the reality is that from other cultural perspective, it could be perceived as even being rude, that, you know, you are very straightforward, very direct, short with words, no like chit-chat or small talk, straight to the business. But yeah, that's something that we have inherited from the history, and that's something true to Estonian nature, I would say.
It is a little bit. And look, let me tell you, I tried to go on a date in this country. Okay, there's no chit chat. It's straight to the, all right.
Right.
It's, look, it's all part, it's sort of, and it's just a bit like when you know what to expect and you know how things are and you go, hey, it's cool. That's how things are. You sort of appreciate that there's quite something to this culture here. There's quite something to this business environment.
It is. It's transparent. It's straightforward. You see what you get, and that's the opportunity here in Estonia.
Nice. All right, Maris, thank you very much for your time. We're going to go on with our next speaker. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, look, let me tell you, there's not so much blah, blah, blah from the Estonians. That's why they hire the Australian to come in here and do that instead. Now, we are talking about health tech and biotech today. And to talk to us a little bit more about that and introduce what's happening in that sector in the Estonian economy, we have the manager of the Connected Health Cluster. And the Connected Health Cluster collaborates with startup incubator and startup portal Technopole to develop new services and emphasize innovative products for companies' product portfolios. Let's hear from Piret Hirv.
Thank you, Luis, and good morning. Yes, Tallinn Science Park Technopole, where I'm working at, is a foundation, and owners of our foundations are state government, the Minister of Foreign Economic Affairs, City of Tallinn, and HealthTech. And I'm working there as a HealthTech community manager, and I'm also a nurse. My name is Piret Hirv, and today's topic is to tell you about how we function in our Technopole and what we can offer to the world in this collaboration. So focus fields in Technopole are not only health tech, but we also deal with green technology and ICT and smart city solutions. But health tech is my passion, so that's why I'm working with this area of focus field. So main question for all our companies and all our members in our ecosystem is how to boost innovation, because this is what we do. We innovate and we develop innovative solutions in our ecosystem. There are a lot of barriers for the innovation, and this is not only Estonia specific. I guess it's the same topics are relevant all over the world. These are the funding issues, evidence issues, how to validate your solutions, end users involvement issues, like really how to involve end users to develop innovative solutions and also in a later stage also to use those innovative solutions. Also institutional framework conditions are problematic all over the world, I guess, as well as in Estonia. So it includes involving all municipality, state levels, and also legislations. And that's why, to overcome all those barriers, we have designed and combined ecosystem called Connected Health Cluster in our Science Park Technopole. And in order to develop or to bring to the world innovative solutions, you need all the stakeholders who are involved in delivering health services. In our ecosystem, you can meet with health IT community and also health startups. Maris told you about startup community, and from that perspective, health startups is our speciality, and they are part of our ecosystem. You can't develop solutions without knowing where the problems are. So we also, healthcare providers are part of our ecosystem, meaning that not only big hospitals, but also smaller specialist offices like family doctors or physiotherapists. Pharmaceutical industry is part of our ecosystem, and not to get support from our ecosystem, but they are involved in developing innovative solutions, and also to support innovation in our ecosystem. Universities, you can't do anything without bright ideas, and universities are one of the sources of research and development activities, but also you need to involve young doctors, nurses to the development. So we do have also universities as part of our ecosystem. Public sector. In Estonia, public sector is one of the biggest facilitators of innovation in healthcare, but also one of the biggest barriers. So you need to have very good relations in order to have innovative solutions in Estonia and worldwide. So what we do to support our companies, we cover the whole company life cycle in our programs. You come to us with your bright idea, and we have Prototron program for your idea to prototype your idea. We have startup incubator services for the more mature ideas. We support our startups with mentors. We support our startups with other business intelligence. So we can, up to the point where you are ready to move to the world, like the previous speaker said, Estonia is a beautiful place where to live, but there is no point to develop solutions only for Estonia. So we do support also with export activities. And again, we also do run hackathons and to find those beautiful ideas and to solve problems in healthcare. And then we actually hope that from those hackathons we have input to our Prototron program to, again, to support prototyping and to get this cycle moving. Services, what we offer to our partners, it's innovation, it's expert contacts, mentoring. As I said, we have 70+ mentors, including mentors from healthcare field, research and development, and universities, piloting, very essential part also for the companies coming from outside Estonia, where to test your solution and validate your services. Marketing, Estonians, as we said, we are not the best sellers maybe, so the marketing service is quite relevant for our companies. Events and network, you need to be a part of an ecosystem. Even for Estonians, it's important to feel this sense of community. We help our companies to find investments. We have a special investors network for that. And community membership, you can actually seal your company or solution with our trademark. It's called Connected Health Cluster, so it shows that this is a valid company and they mean business. So yes, innovation is living, or innovation lives here in our Science Park Tehnopol, so come and join us, and we are happy to have a discussion and welcome you to in Estonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Piret. Thank you. Please take a seat here.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you mentioned, you had a line in your talk which you said that the public sector in Estonia is one of the biggest drivers in the healthcare industry or healthcare sector, but it's also one of the biggest hindrances or roadblocks or difficulties. Can you expand on that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, sure. In Estonia, the way our healthcare functions is that we have only one single payer for healthcare services. That is our health insurance fund. So if they approve the solution and release it to the market, and they are willing to pay for this solution, then the solution is good to go, and we can all enjoy these innovative solutions in our healthcare systems. But if they do not pay for the service, then private healthcare is a bit marginalized here in Estonia. It's not very, most of the healthcare is publicly funded and publicly also served by public institutions. So, which is actually a good thing if we look at the expenditure of healthcare, or what we spend, how big money we do spend on healthcare, then it's lower. Even if we look at the European standards, it's below the average. But still, we are able to deliver high quality, innovative healthcare to almost to all of our citizens.
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, certainly, I think the Estonian healthcare system is great. I think the public system is great. It was just interesting to find one, not maybe negative, but interesting side effect, let's say, of that system.
Yeah, this is one of the topics, and we need to have a discussions with all the stakeholders. And I guess that this barrier is getting lower and lower because innovative is not easy to accept, and healthcare system is quite not moving that fast, maybe, which is also a good thing because it's your and my health, so we need to be absolutely sure that things are not happening too fast in healthcare.
This is true. So there's always a balance to be found in these situations. I mean, I do definitely enjoy in Estonia, even at a patient level, that our online prescription system is just tremendous. And I mean, myself, you got a little thing that maybe I don't need to go to the doctor, particularly these days. You want to not head into a doctor's surgery. I have a family doctor on the system. I could email my doctor. My doctor knows me. She put the prescription into the system, and right now, right at that moment, I can go to a pharmacy, give them my ID card, and get the prescription. No paper, no time wasted. Literally that afternoon, I got my prescription and I was able to get helped.
Me too. I absolutely enjoy this nationwide healthcare system what we have, and actually you can also access your health data and see the same data that your doctor is writing, maybe in her office. But what we are lacking in Estonia, maybe these are the we have this big system, and then there is a citizen. And you need this very value-adding small services that you need to communicate with a big system. For instance, maybe you don't have to go to see a dermatologist, but you can actually test your skin or scan your skin at home.
Okay.
And just send the picture in a very safe manner, of course.
Of course.
To your doctor's office, and then the doctor can actually diagnose your skin condition. This kind of services, these are the services that we are developing in our cluster.
Right.
So these huge systems, they are great, but we still need this value adding that actually make my life more comfortable and also makes increases the quality of the service, and also allows access to the services from different areas in Estonia. It's a small country, but we still live in the forest, maybe, some of us.
That is true. I when Estonians talk like that, I come from a country that's 3,000 kilometers across. And it's like, we're very you've never been to the outback.
Yeah, but we still have rural areas, and
yes,
we call them remote services. So
no, it's very much needed. I agree, and it's interesting that you bring that example. It's the core of the system is good. The core is solid and stable and secure. And now it's adding the quality of life services, these extra things that are needed around that. I mean, for me, I had to I wrote to my doctor in an email. Now, not like I care. It's not like I care if the hackers find out about what I'm writing to my doctor, but it still did occur to me, wait, I'm just writing an email to my doctor, and I'm not going through some official kind of
one
thing.
Is the security issue, but the other thing is also that doctors need to save your information somewhere, somehow. And now, like you writing an email, it will stay in this mailbox.
Yeah.
And what will happen to this information further? There is no system yet for that. I mean, still, if you want to have this really accurate saved information about your health, you need to communicate, or doctor needs to insert this to the system.
Sure,
but
there's
maybe
still
one
a manual
day,
process, it's still an extra step,
Yeah.
and doctors are not exactly lazy people with nothing to do. They're usually quite busy
they are
people.
quite busy, yeah.
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 Let's change tracks for a second here. So let's talk about the US market, which is our focus for our meeting this morning here. What innovations or products, or what do you think right now your sector and your organization have to bring to the US market?
Well, first of all, we have this one door to these innovative solutions. This is our Connected Health Cluster website.
Right.
You just can visit it and scroll all the companies and see what they have to offer. And we have, we have monitoring, our solutions that are monitoring your health. We have few mental health solutions, for me, it's really exciting solution is a mental health solution for children. So they can actually, through the game or playing a game, they can actually support their activities. For instance, these hectic times, there is a solution that helps children to understand what is happening, just playing a game. And game explains them what will, it's Triumph gamification or Triumph game. So and this kind of bright, beautiful and small solutions what we have to offer to US markets, which are scalable actually in big countries as well.
So are you actively pushing them into the States right now, or is it still just, are you in the early stages of preparing these for the foreign market?
We have different companies. Some of them are really mature, big ones. One was even nominated as a best company in Estonia, or company of the year in Estonia last night. Nortal.
Oh, Nortal were, yes.
So we have big ones, but we also do have very small and agile and fast developing startups in our portfolio.
Right, because you're sort of a whole ecosystem, aren't you?
Yes.
That you're developing, right? And you showed right from prototron, right at the beginning, almost from idea stage, really up to maturity and beyond.
Yes, but we are trying to take care of the whole life cycle of a solution or of the idea, and hopefully to develop it until it's ready to go to the US market.
Good. All right, Peter, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for your talk. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so in this morning's session, we're focusing on the health tech sector and biotech in Estonia. We just got a general overview of where these ecosystems are at right now in Estonia. And what we're going to be hearing now is from 3 different Estonian companies, and we're going to hear their story and how they are contributing and how they are also looking to the US market potentially. So our first speaker this morning is from the Estonian Biobank, head of Estonian Genome Center. So the Estonian Biobank was founded in the year 2000 as a volunteer-based biobank, and today it contains the health and genetic data for over 200,000 individuals, which is something like 20% of the population. So that's quite a lot of genetic data on file. Now, of course, privacy concerns are all being looked after here, how that data is being shared and used. But thanks to a lot of the online systems and online medical systems we have in Estonia, that data can also be updated quite regularly. And that's producing really fascinating and deep insights into the human genome and how this is working. So to tell us all about in a much more deeper way that I could never explain, let's have the head of the Estonian Genome Center, Lili Milani.
So thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to present a bit of an academic view of how health tech can actually be improved with the help of information from the human genome. So the Estonian Biobank is hosted at the Estonian Genome Center at the University of Tartu. And as mentioned, it was established about 20 years ago as a prospective longitudinal volunteer-based biobank. And by now we have recruited about 200,000 participants, which is 20% of the adult population in Estonia. And for each participant, we have DNA, plasma, and cell samples that are stored for long-term use. And also the health records, diet, physical activity, and other health-related information. So the work of the biobank is regulated by the Estonian Human Genes Research Act, and all participants have signed a broad informed consent that allows us to update their health records from different national health databases, registries, and such from hospitals as well. And the biobank is open for research. There are very clear access rules, and scientists are working on this data every day. So the different health registries that we are linking to are, for example, the population registry to find out if the person is still alive, or the causes of death registry to find out the causes of death, and also just disease registries, or the National Health Insurance Fund's database regarding different procedures, diagnosis, and medication use. So using annual linking to these different databases, we get a longitudinal follow-up period, both going back in time and forward in time from the recruitment date. And this electronic follow-up just gives us kind of disease trajectories, so what disease came first and second and third, and we can get clinical lab measurements that have been taken at the doctor's office. So whether we look at cholesterol levels, or we can see blood pressure changes, or CRP, so looking at inflammation, which is an underlying factor of many common diseases. And we can look at insurance bills to look at different procedures that the person has gone through. And finally, we have the deep, full, free text records where the doctors put the most interesting information and most detailed as well. And when working together with Estonian IT companies that are really strong in text mining and natural language processing, they've actually structured a lot of this free text for us. And they're able to pick up the misspelling or shortening of words and abbreviations that doctors use that are completely non-standard, just using really advanced techniques. So using these measures, we have been able to collect a lot of health information for each biobank participant. And we are using this in our everyday research to look for genetic associations between different genes and health conditions. So the different layers of what we call omics data that we have is genomic, exomic, or what we look at is either we have the whole genome sequence of 3,000 participants from the biobank. This is quite unique and globally considered the number of individuals. And then we have genotyped, by now actually 200,000, all individuals. This is focusing on a slightly smaller panel of genetic variants, but still it's 700,000 different genetic variants that we're looking at. And the only difference between whole genome sequencing and genotyping is, of course, the huge cost. So still today, sequencing a whole genome is around 1,000 euros, while genotyping 700,000 markers is in the range of 50 euros. So this is the major reason why we have gone for genotyping for now. But of course, we are looking for different partnerships to be able to sequence more genomes. The advantage of whole genome sequencing is that we can pick up more rare genetic variants that could be disease-causing or associated with some positive changes in the human biology and be used for identifying new and better drug targets. So when we talk about genetic variation, we're looking at specific regions in the human DNA that vary between two individuals. And we are looking for variation between, for example, people with a specific disease and people who are healthy. So when doing these genome-wide studies, we are just comparing which genetic variants are more common among the people with the disease compared to the rest of the population. And first of all, the easiest low-hanging fruits are monogenic diseases. It means that if you have a mutation in a specific gene, you're going to be very, very likely to get the disease. And we have tested two specific diseases, two of the most common ones, which are very well known. So one of them is familial hypercholesterolemia. It means that you have a genetic factor that is running in the family and causing extremely high cholesterol levels, although you may be completely slim, physically active, and be on a fairly healthy diet. And this is caused by mutations in 3 specific genes mostly: LDL receptor, ApoB, and PCSK9. And actually 1 in 200 people carry these mutations, and a few countries have screening programs to pick up individuals with these diagnoses, but in most countries these are just severely underdiagnosed. And the problem here is that these people are at a much higher risk of getting a heart attack at a young age. So we did a study where we called everyone back from the sequencing study, everyone with mutations in these genes, and they were examined by cardiologists, and only a very, very small fraction of them had the correct diagnosis. Half of them had some kind of hypercholesterolemia registered, but only 1/3 were actually taking the medication they should have been taken. And after the study, most of them got the correct diagnosis, and about 70% started treatment. So we hope that with this, people will start, both people and clinicians, are now much more positive and aware of the genetic background of this disease, and that we can use genetics to actually pick up hidden cases in the population. A very similar story for breast cancer. Thanks to Angelina Jolie, a lot of you know about the BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations that give you about 80% probability of getting breast cancer. And again, it's more than 1 in 200 that actually carry these mutations. And when we recontacted individuals with mutations in these genes, they were brought in for consults by oncologists, and we found that although many of them had a family history of breast cancer, they hadn't been to an oncologist yet. So with these 2 studies, we not only convinced ourselves, but also active clinicians are now very much for a genetics-first approach. So using genetics to pick out hidden cases in the populations and to change this unawareness of the disease or people carrying these mutations to create opportunities for disease prevention and early detection, which is always easier to treat, for example, in cancer. But most of us don't carry these genetic variants. However, there are a lot of common diseases, cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes, that affect a large proportion of the population. So when looking at these diseases, we see that there are hundreds of genetic variants that are associated with these diseases, and the effect of every single genetic variant is very small. So we can't do a monogenic test that do I have this genetic variant or not, but we have tested and created these polygenic risk scores. We take into account all the genetic variants that are associated with a disease, and then we sum them up, and if you have exceptionally many high-risk genetic variants, we test and see that do we observe a lot more cases among these top 5, top 10 individuals with the top highest genetic risk. And what we observe, for example, for cardiovascular disease is that the people with the 5% highest genetic risk score, there we observe 20% of the cardiovascular deaths in men. So there is a 4-fold higher risk of getting a heart attack and dying of cardiovascular disease if you're in this top 5% of the highest genetic risk scores. So again, this gives us even more tools for targeted disease prevention and to either prevent or at least delay the onset of these chronic diseases that are putting a very large strain on the healthcare budgets of many countries. Last but not least, these genetic variants affect how we respond to different medications. This is an area called pharmacogenetics. And if we look at a patient journey when a drug is prescribed, he's exemplified by an antidepressant. You start with a smaller dose, you evaluate after 4 weeks, and about 1/3 will respond to treatment. Next, they increase the dose to double the dose and keep going for 4 to 8 weeks again, and another 1/3 will respond. And finally, for those who didn't respond to the treatment, you switch to another antidepressant and repeat. So what we envision is that using genetics, we can actually faster get to the right treatment at the right dose for the right person. And this has been supported by many scientific studies that have done randomized clinical studies to prove the effectiveness of pharmacogenetics. So the clinical response is more than 2 times better, 2 times less hospitalization due to adverse drug events, and of course there are cost savings, mostly in the field of oncology, that are extremely high. So just as an example, I picked out how many different antidepressants a person in the Estonian biobank has been prescribed on average. And looking at these different records, we see that more than half of the individuals have tried at least 2 different antidepressants, and some, or even over 100, have tried more than 10 different antidepressants. Do you think this is an effective healthcare system? Well, this is the case in all countries, because we don't have this genetic information at the doctor's office before they start prescribing medications. And unfortunately, about 98% of Europeans actually carry a genetic variant that affects drug response. And the Clinical Pharmacogenetics Implementation Consortium is set out to create drug prescription guidelines based on genetics of specific individuals. And what we did is that we took all these published guidelines and we translated the genetic information of the Estonian biobank participants into pharmacogenetic passports or drug prescription guidelines for clinicians. And here's an example of what this report looks like. I'm sorry it's in Estonian, but basically it is telling you whether a person is a normal or standard average drug metabolizer, or if they are ultra rapid or extremely slow drug metabolizers, and would then need either higher dosing or extremely low doses, or avoiding specific medications. So the top examples is a person who can't metabolize specific antidepressants, and we've actually had examples of people who've received their reports and said that I've actually been treated with both of these medications and had severe side effects, and why doesn't my doctor have this information when it's already written in my DNA? So we are working very hard together with the Ministry of Social Affairs and computer scientists and other partners to get this information to the doctor's office as soon as possible. We also have tested communicating this genetic information back to biobank participants and combining, for example, you have a high genetic risk for type 2 diabetes, but it is a lot you can change based on your lifestyle. So here's an example of a person that is a bit overweight for their length, and we are explaining that at your current body mass index, you are at very high risk for type 2 diabetes over the next 10 years, but if you reduce it by specific measures, then you could reduce your risk considerably. So based on this information, we are very eager, and I think Estonia has already taken this course of 4P medicine, so we want to create predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory medicine. And the advantages in Estonia that help us reach this goal is the really well-established e-health system, the digital prescriptions that are already all 99% electronic, and a nationwide biobank that currently hosts 20% of the adult population, but we are hoping and aiming for a high proportion. And I think that once we start getting this information into the healthcare system, then this number will grow naturally. So as a last point, I would like to emphasize that this is not only research and improving healthcare, but it is a business opportunity as well. Specifically, there's great interest, of course, from pharma into different biobanks, just based on studies that have shown that drug development based on genetics are at least 2 times more effective. And it also provides opportunities for drug repurposing based on different genetic targets. And we can also tell which genetic variants that are actually good, showing good drug targets and which ones that would actually increase risk for a certain other disease, although they may be beneficial for another disease and so on. So how can we boost innovation? We believe in public-private partnerships, and we are creating different models for creating an incubator by the biobank and see how we can actually scale up and scale out, and how we can keep validating different algorithms based on the data that we have. And there are a lot of different biobanks that we collaborate with and work together with. And for the Estonian biobank, there are certain advantages. For example, we have done and shown that we can recontact patients with specific genetic variants. We can call them in for clinical studies. It's a fairly simple ecosystem. We have continuous medical data, similar to Nordic countries. And it is also possible for cross-border data transfer. And if you compare us to larger countries, I think that the sample size here is comparable to other much larger countries. And I'm really glad to be working on this project. So these are just some of our very important partners that we are working with. And thank you for attention, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Lil. Thank you, Lily. Why don't you take a seat over there? Very interesting insight into the work you're doing at the biobank. I mean, it's fascinating. It's not something that we always hear about, this storing of genetic data, the way that you're applying it, and the insights that you're finding. It sounds like very valuable information, both for an individual and both for a society as well. That, okay, I want to know what's up with me, but we want to see the broad patterns that are happening across society. So, but then what does that mean for you? Like, what collaboration partners are you looking for at the biobank then?
Yeah, so mostly we're of course working with scientific collaborators, but we have had several industry partnerships as well. They pay better.
Amen.
But overall, I think that there are still so many discoveries that we need to make. So we are very highly focused on research. But we also feel that we know so much about the human genome that we need to start implementing this in the healthcare system. So that's why we are now not only finding associations between genes and diseases, but we're building this algorithms for risk prediction and which algorithm is working better and how can we improve these algorithms and so on. So we really wanted to get into the healthcare system.
Right, so it's not, I mean, one side of it I would imagine, again, as someone who doesn't know nothing about the health industry, but there's one side is the research, one side is the real very deep, possibly usually academic research, but it almost sounds like from what you're saying, what you're looking for now is the applications in practical real world situations. How can this practically be applied to a population and to individuals? Is that sort of something about what you were meaning?
Yeah. So this is called like translational research. So it's moving it from the bench to the bedside, or moving it from the research lab to the clinical setting. It may sound easier than it actually is. So I think we have a lot of people who are waiting for their reports, 20% of the adult population. And although they've made an enormous contribution to science, of course, we understand that they are waiting for their personal reports. And maybe we were a bit naive in the beginning also to believe that we could get this to them within a year or two. But there are a lot of legal, ethical, even the IT architecture of the Estonian e-health systems is requiring a lot of thoughts and debates of where this information should be stored, who's in charge of the data within the e-health system, because we are used to very strict data security platforms. And of course, the e-health system is just as secure or even more secure. But for example, for us, we work only with pseudonymized data. So all the personal information of people are locked up in a room without any internet access and so on.
Oh, that is very interesting. Okay. Right. So Estonia has a very advanced e-health system. I talked before about, e-prescription, just one part of that system, but our health data is being stored in systems. the Estonian government IT policy has a directive they're called once only, which means that they should only be storing your data once. That should not be duplicated between government systems, and then that means that your data should live in a system, and there should be a owner, possibly a department or whatever that might be, a certain organization, and then there's access controls to that data, of which you can also then audit yourself, and you can log into the Estonian health system and you can see who looked up my data. Where did that come from? And not just health, amongst other things as well. So is that what is making it difficult to integrate, that you, in your online database, essentially, it's not connected to the person, so you can't just jack into the Estonian healthcare system and start collaborating with that data?
Yeah, exactly. So it goes through a coding laboratory, and that one is very closed and no internet access, so it's actually very slow.
Wow.
But now with developments in cybersecurity and new technologies, of course, we are considering whether this is maybe an aged solution, but
is that because you started in the year 2000? And okay,
exactly.
Back then, just that security system didn't exist back then.
Exactly. So, I mean, even the current systems, we don't know, are they hackable or not? So it's very easy to say that, no, you can't hack it because it's in a room that's locked and I don't even know where the room is, and yeah, so
I don't know
no internet access.
What's health? I don't know. Estonia? What's Estonia? Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Because I was going to ask, like, what's, again, we talk a lot about this Estonian, almost like an impatience in our business culture, which is we want to get it done. I want it now. Why? I'm used to making it happen. And so, yeah, when we get these roadblocks, maybe in other countries, people are used to the bureaucracy. They're used to a healthcare system working like a dinosaur, where we're not. And so my question was going to be, hey, what's stopping it? Why can't I go to my doctor? Why can't the doc look at my history and cross-reference that to my biological genome profile to come up with something? I'm like, hey, they're databases. Can't you connect them? But okay, now we're seeing the answer. No, it's not quite there. It's air-gapped.
Yeah, and with the new regulations that came in place regarding in vitro diagnostics devices, is that actually every algorithm that you use in the healthcare system needs to be CE marked by 2022.
Okay.
So now as scientists, okay, but these algorithms work. No, you need to go through loads of bureaucracy to get all of these different tools CE marked so that they could actually be used in the healthcare system. So I think there are a lot of obstacles that we didn't think of when we started, and some of them were actually not there. So this is one of the issues. But I think that what I love about Estonians is that you just start doing it and we'll figure it out. It will get there. But in other countries, maybe they start with discussions and they will discuss and plan this for 5 years before they even start. So I think we are at a heads up, and we can see. We'll get there. Yeah.
It's always a balance with these things, isn't
Yeah.
it? No, we don't want to plan for too long, but we need to do some planning. But that we just a minute or so to go. I mean, 20% of a population is a massive number of people, as you pointed out. Now, how did you originally get that? Was it just people walking in going, here's my donation? Or was something else happening to them, and then that you were taking that data and then they could tick and say, I approve for it to be used over here as well? Or how was that originally signing up, I guess?
Yeah, so although the biobank was established in 2000, the first 50,000 biobank participants were actually recruited by general practitioners. Yeah, mostly general practitioners. And it was over at least 5, 6, 7 years to collect 50,000. And then in 2018, we just got funding to recruit 100,000. So more than half of the biobank was recruited in 1 year. And it was the most intense year of our lives.
Well, what's the recruit? Like what? There's a bus or something that travels around?
We tried everything,
Okay.
Like we tried just setting it up in clinical labs where people would go and donate blood anyway. We tried with hospitals, didn't work quite well. They were not too engaged and people were asking too many questions. The doctors didn't have time to take the samples. And by midway through, then we saw that, it's getting difficult to meet this target. And we had great discussions with some pharmacies, and they were looking for some new ways of updating their services and changing what they do. So they actually stepped in and helped us out. So we started collecting samples at pharmacies all over Estonia. And that was when we got the boost and we saw that we're actually going to meet the target. And but it was, influencer campaigns. We had people working with us all voluntarily to actually... It was a collective effort by hundreds of Estonians.
It's quite a modern campaign if you're actually including social influencers and so forth in this. Huh. Because I was about to say, because I was just thinking, you know, like it's funny that you mentioned going to the pharmacy, because I thought, oh, you're going to be like the mobile phone sellers in the mall or something. Like, come on, give me the bio. Come on, where is it? Hand it over.
Yeah, they kind of were.
Yeah, right. But okay, and was it an education process to inform the public, or was it once people sort of saw it briefly, they kind of got it and understood it was a good thing? Because it can be a common problem, I think, in the West, and I know in Australia, like people are like, mate, who knows what they're going to do with it? Oh, I don't trust them, you know, like where Estonia has a slightly different attitude. What was your experiences?
Yeah, I think that it's building great trust that the biobank is at a university. But overall, I think also that this general excitement has been built up for many years, and it coincided with the stage where we started returning results to specific biobank participants, especially the breast cancer cases.
The influencers.
No, they haven't got the reports yet. But like everyone else, they haven't got them yet. But just having this information and whenever we had interesting stories, they were out in the media about this person, finding out about the risk and now knowing how to prevent it, or the story of the antidepressants and how she kept taking different ones and getting these horrible side effects, and then saw it in her genetic report. So it was a scientific project where we started returning results and looking, so how much information can we pick up, and how could people get help, and working with oncologists and cardiologists and just building these kind of treatment platforms. So what are we actually going to do with this information? And all of this was always going through the media as well. Sure. And I think that was also something that motivated people to know.
Very good. All right, I'm going to leave it there. But thank you for a very insightful talk about something I absolutely knew nothing about. This is great.
Thank you.
This one. Boom. Okay, so that was talking about the Estonian biobank, a very innovative project. And you can see that while it's delivering really rich benefits to society, there's a really lot to go on there. There are very deep and profound security and privacy aspects that are absolutely being taken into account. But it's such a project that when those things can be gotten through, the wins are going to be really big for the individual and also for our society. All right, we have two more health tech companies to go in our talk this morning. Our next company is Vivo Health. And Vivo Health, they are providing an all-in-one online simple solution for telemedicine. So just like I was saying before, if I can't get to my doctor to go and actually see them in person these days, how do you do it? Do you just load up a Skype or some sort of Microsoft Teams to talk to your doctor? Well, Vivo Health are actually producing a whole infrastructure. It's secure. It hooks into the online health systems that facilitates this and allows it to happen. So to tell us all about Vivo Health, let's have the CEO and founder, Mr. Raul Callo.
Thank you. I'm Raul, founder of Vivo Health and CEO of Vivo Health. And I'd like to talk about healthcare in a digital way and how to make efficiencies in healthcare today. So already before COVID-19, healthcare was broken. And when this year in March, whole healthcare system collapsed, and the only way for the doctors basically to get access to their patients was through telehealth. And the solution through telehealth is to have proper tool that is compliant, that is meant for the doctors and keeps data safe. So in March last year, telehealth raised from almost 0% to 76% in the world. People wanted to have virtual doctor visits and were really scared to go to the hospitals and clinics with their health issues. And also this year in March, many governments decided to change the legislation so that people could actually get access to the medical institutions from distance. So then we in Viva Health, we've been developing a platform for our own doctors for more than 3 years. And during this COVID time, we noticed that actually the technology that we have developed is something that suddenly whole world needs. Even countries where telemedicine was not allowed, kind of asked our help. And what we did, we took our technology and made it available for the doctors globally. And then in April, we launched 2 days in 42 countries. We saw doctors starting to use our service. So what is Viva platform? It's something that combines all these Skype, email, fax, all these tools that doctors are using and to interact with their patients. But these tools are not made for that reason. So Viva Health platform combines all this together and enables doctor to create a virtual office for themselves. What we mean with virtual office is that they can do whole patient management journey. They can create health records. They can write prescriptions. They can collect payments. Many features. So we've been using it in Viva Health already for more than a year, and what we have seen is big efficiency gains when we are comparing traditional doctor visit. Then it takes about 3 hours from the patient, and average minutes patient spends with the doctor is 8 minutes. So most of the time they are spending in traffic, in the waiting rooms, and then once the physical appointment is happening, then out of this 8 minutes, most of the time actually doctor is sitting using different computer programs, and if efficiency is like not the right word in this kind of consultation. So what we saw was that about 80% of the doctor visits actually can be done virtually through chat, through video call, through normal phone call that is secure and enables to authenticate the patient. So what we created is very secure, seamless platform for the doctors, where they can sign into our cloud-based platform and do everything there. They don't need physical office or a clinic in many cases anymore. They can take their offline practices online. And how we started Viva Health, we started combining insurance with telehealth and offline visits. My personal background is from insurance. I started my insurance brokerage company at the age of 21, and that's where I got my financial independence as well. So my main concern was that how to make private health insurance more affordable for more people. And that's where we saw huge inefficiencies. So we launched our service together with American insurer AmTrust in the beginning. When we entered the market, we were super efficient, and then changed to the biggest insurance company in Scandinavia, got 4 times cheaper prices for our clients. So haven't seen so big reductions in insurance business before. But what we noticed was that not only doctors asked our solutions, but we got approached by a lot of clinics as well and hospital chains that actually came to us and asked our help to get their practices online. So what we have been developing is a full solution for the clinics as well, that where doctors can change the patient and also do a lot of administrative things on our platform as well. And the third product that we are just about to launch is Vivo Premium solution, where actually doctors can get more patients. They have access to all their patients that we have that are having a need for the consultation, but it enables also to book offline appointments. And what is super critical is that our smart payment system enables to cut off all the patient no-shows. Even if there is a patient no-show, doctors get paid. So this is something that we have developed over the little bit more than 3 years' time. So definitely what we see is a huge value for the patient. They can have access remotely. They don't need to spend a lot of time in the traffic. And of course, it's much more secure than being or hanging around in a doctor waiting room with other sick people. So we see that clients really like our solution. Then, of course, as we all know, that clinics were unable to provide any kind of medical help for their customers because of the risk of COVID was so high, and so planned medical supply almost around the world was stopped for 3 months. So even these doctors who are in the risk group of getting COVID because of high age or some chronic disease, or maybe they need, some of the doctors, they needed to self-isolate themselves. So for them, our platform is only a tool to really help their patients. And obviously we have seen a lot of good feedback from our business partners as well. And we are working with the biggest telcos already to provide our solutions for many people. So when COVID started, then we actually created completely new revenue model. We made our platform free of charge for the doctors and also for the patients. So how we get paid is when doctors start to use our payment platform, and we get a small percentage from the payments. And this is something that we have seen that many doctors and clinics really like, that they don't need to pay if they don't like our solution. So what we have done so far, so we started 2017, and unlike most of the startups, I invested my own money, 2 million euros, to build up the business, and I wanted to be really sure before going to the investors that the solution that we working on is really like something where I would invest my own, even more. So past 3 years, basically, I was investing my own money and bootstrapping the business. Then once the COVID started, then I took from a friend's small 2 million funding round, and then I started to focus on launching our service in selected countries. And out of these 42 countries where doctors signed up to our platform, we selected 7 altogether where we wanted to focus more. So together with private health insurance, we launched our service in Latvia and Lithuania, but the platform for the doctors we launched in India, in Mexico, South Africa, and Brazil. And why these countries? Basically because we don't have any competition there. Legislation has changed. We can enter the market quickly, and what we saw was that to onboard doctors was really, really cheap. So that's about what we have done so far. So now we are raising our Series A. We already have a bunch of interested investors in a government event. Almost 200 global investors voted Vivo Health as one of the most promising company out of Estonia, and then happy to find a right partner out of these investor who has approached us so far, and then to give an opportunity for them to take a part of our journey. So what makes us different as well is our team is not a traditional startup team where young guys doing their first business moves. Our team is full of heavy hitters in the business. So, like myself, I started the insurance business at the age of 21, and I do have paying customers even in US in this business, even though I'm not actively involved there anymore. William, our CTO, is a BioTech unicorn, one of the first employees there. So he has seen how to build a company from 20 people to 3,000. So Lawrence, our financial guy, knows a lot about how to really invest and keep our finances under control. He comes from Deutsche Bank in Hong Kong. So David was the CEO of Citibank and Deutsche Bank in Japan in the booming times. Compti scaled Netflix and Taboola in Southeast Asia. She's responsible for the revenue growth, and Guilherme is our chief of growth from Brazil, and he has done a growth in healthcare for many years. And Esther has built up 3 pharmacy chains in neighboring countries. Thanks for having me, and feel free to come back with all the questions.
Thank you, Raul. Let's take a seat over here on the couch. Good talk.
Thank you.
I like it. Interesting product, and well, you have to, obviously the pandemic is a terrible thing, but it seems to have presented a certain opportunity for your company.
Yeah, definitely. For us, company changed in basically weeks, and people all started to work like 16 hours a day, and really, to offer solution that we had to everybody. So it was like super interesting.
Yeah, so in those early days when it was all dawning on us, oh God, this is happening, this is, affecting the whole world, and you said you and your employees started to work 16 hours and around the clock. What was that first extra work for you? Was it just inquiries? Was it onboarding? How did that really ramp up for you?
Yeah, basically on the technology side, we thought that actually we need to make it simple and make our message really simple. And then when we launched, after maybe 3 weeks, the first solution, then our solution was like a Formula One supercar for the first driver. So it was too complicated in terms of all the features that we were using, all these artificial intelligence tools. All this, basically what we noticed was that, for doctors, it was way too much. Our doctors were using that, but for them, of course, for the people who has never used anything before, it was complicated. Then, to build up a team, global team, that was challenging as well. Now we have offices in India, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, Latvia, Lithuania, basically in short time, quite a few new offices. So it's all about the people, I would say.
And are all those countries, are they all within the last 6 months or 12 months?
Basically within 6 months.
Dang.
So quite a lot of new people. Most of them I haven't met personally myself.
Right, yeah, but
Only
still, that's
Zoom.
amazing. So you were just, if I understand correctly from this, you were just on the cusp of going to market when COVID hit. Is that right?
Basically, we were on the market only in Estonia,
okay.
testing the platform together with the insurance, and then we were just about to enter Finland. But then, of course, with COVID, everything changed.
Oh my God, that's got to be like that scene in Ghostbusters. We got one. It's time to get to work.
Yeah.
When that happened, you've got to ramp up. You've got to get out the door. And is it a little bit like that? You'd sort of done testing in the Estonian market, which is okay. The doctors are used to online systems. They're used to e-prescriptions, and so the Estonian doctors were fine with the Formula One car, to use your metaphor.
Yeah,
but in other countries where the e-medicine is not as far advanced, it was just way over their heads.
Yeah, they were using Skype, they were using WhatsApp, all these kind of tools. But for us, it's basically the same as making operation with a kitchen knife if you're a doctor. So you cannot use these kind of tools for the telehealth. But what we created was so simple platform that it's even easier to use than Zoom. So now it shouldn't be a problem anymore.
That's good. Literally any idiot can use Zoom. So,
basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the, using is one thing, but what's the onboarding process, let's say per doctor, doctor individual, doctor surgery, they want to get onto your system. Let's say in an established country, in a market we're already working, what's their onboarding process?
It's basically as simple as adding phone number, email address, or you can onboard all your patients, upload their list to our cloud-based platform, and then super simple. So that was one of the critical things as well, that we find out that it needs to be really simple. Otherwise, it will end right there.
Sure. Now, I imagine your system, let's say in Estonia, you've definitely got hooks and connections into insurance, into e-health, into many of the different systems that exist. Now, in other countries where maybe that infrastructure does not exist, how do you go to get into a market where none of that exists? You're like, cool, no problems. You've then got to, I imagine, moving into a new country, hook into at least the insurance, to do something. How was it? Tell us about moving into some of those countries where the systems are not as advanced.
We have this e-health record from 2008. Most of the countries, they don't have e-health record at all. So we are strong believers that healthcare should be data-driven, and then it should be accessible for more people. So these countries where we are entering, most of them, they don't have any kind of e-health record, so we created ourselves. It's basically kind of starting from scratch when we are talking about e-health. It works in a way that doctor is just starting to use with their current patient list. In many hospitals or clinics, we see that patient lists are on the paper still. So they are actually taking these patients over, and we have webinars all these countries, South Africa, India, Brazil, Mexico, where doctors are signing up and are asking how to use the platform, and it goes really, really well. Even I attended our webinar in South Africa, and then it was really good. Even I wanted to use the platform, even if I'm not the doctor. So.
Okay, so it's really growing there. One common question that gets asked is, the work of doctors can sometimes be quite elusive and mysterious to the common person. We have this conception of them, either they're sitting in their office just writing scripts all day, or they're running around a hospital like a crazy person. How do you think telemedicine is going to change the workload of doctors? Do we need less or more in a society now? Or how do you see that when you look into that crystal ball?
I think whole society definitely needs more doctors, but the whole world is lacking doctors. But what is critical is that the doctors that we have can actually help more people at the same, within the same time. So through the telehealth visits, doctors can service so many more patients, up to 20 patients an hour instead of 3 or 4. So definitely there is a huge chance for the people to get cheaper healthcare all around the world. And definitely, if you combine health data with here was a biobank with a genomic data, behavioral data, then we are strong believers that the whole world in healthcare will change a lot in the next 5 to 10 years' time.
It feels like that revolution is coming. It's slowly, but it's coming. Okay. Anyway, Ralph, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, this is our virtual trade mission to Estonia 2020. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is day 3, where we have been focusing on the HealthTech and BioTech industries. And our goal this morning is to give you an overview of doing business, the business community and the government community in Estonia, and then also to highlight some of the very interesting players in the health tech and biotech industry in Estonia. And we're already seeing really very innovative solutions that are being implemented in real life with real revenue and are making a real difference. Now, we have one more innovative company this morning to present to you. Our next company is Cognus, and they support healthcare providers in reducing unwanted care variability with novel methods for making nursing protocols accessible and actionable at the point and time of care. To tell us all about it, we have the founder and CEO of Cognus, Andres Melik.
Thank you very much, Louis. So my name is Andres Melik. I'm the CEO and founder of Cognus. And as mentioned, our primary mission is to improve care quality, improve patient safety, and when possible, help hospitals avoid costs that are actually avoidable. So if we take an average nurse at a medium to large health center or a hospital, on average, they need to memorize around 400 different procedures. So that means the hospital, or nationally or federally, those procedures have been standardized. There is content available nationally or generated at the hospital to help them in performing these procedures, but it is virtually impossible to actually remember all of those different steps that they need to do. And the sequence of the steps, the length of the steps, and the overall complexity of the procedures can be quite overwhelming. If we combine this with the overall problem of the majority of healthcare workers being at risk of burnout, constant stress, and so on, and about 40% of them actually being afraid of making a mistake, sometimes a fatal one, at work, we really get something that eventually results in unwarranted care variation. And that care variation is the number one internal cost for hospitals. What that means is that's actually something that the hospitals have to cover themselves. It's not something that will be reimbursed to them. And that content that is being pushed to the nursing staff as our primary target users is often inaccessible. So it will sit in a network folder or literally on a shelf in a catalog. And when it is accessible, eventually, it's not actionable, meaning it's too long, it's too cumbersome, and so on. So we basically set out to solve that part of the problem, which is causing unwarranted care variation. And we started focusing on the procedural guides first. So basically, we took about 6 months to really understand the problem around it. And we categorized those procedures into 4 different categories. And those essentially include novel situations, so that something what the nurse has not been familiarized with before, rare procedures, something they don't do too often, but they still have to do them, of course, correctly. And it's also onboarding junior nurses, for instance, learning and training and so on. And what we developed is essentially on the front end, it's a mobile application. So it has 2 interfaces. One is the visual interface, where you can actually interact with the content, but you can also use your own voice. So for major languages, we are offering the platform with a voice-guided option, which basically helps the hospitals mitigate the risk of infections and so on. So you don't actually have to touch anything if you don't want to while doing a procedure. And since then, the platform has actually grown to something much more comprehensive. And so we really call it like a safety net for nurses. So it's basically a kind of a digital body for the nurse. So supporting them during the procedures, but they can also report broken or missing equipment. They can take notes. They can also take notes and report various situations or adverse events or deviations from protocol anonymously, which, depending on the country, might be the norm or not. And they can also actually measure their own cognitive state. So there are quick kind of cognitive tests, basically, on the platform, so that we will be also able to see if a nurse is experiencing some stress or fatigue, and so on. And in order to demonstrate this in real life, we actually have this a short video clip from one of our earliest adopters.
Should a nurse internalize step by step all the care procedures? Actually, there is an easier way.
So we're tackling the widespread problems of unwarranted care variation, patient safety, as well as staff burnout.
Co-nurse ensures the procedural protocols, guidelines, and checklists are followed each and every time by supporting nurses' memory to remember over 300 plus protocols.
And so what we've seen in working with approximately 100 to 150 hospitals globally is that these challenges are faced at every single hospital.
Now, via Bluetooth headset connected to the smartphone, caregivers are guided through each procedure and given a checklist to preclude any deviations.
This application will help them feel more confident in completing their work-related tasks.
So, and then essentially what I would like to highlight are the sort of the key benefits of employing such a platform. So first is, of course, it will help you drive standardization at the institution, and standardization in itself is a beneficial process. So basically what that means is safer care is cheaper care, and safer care is something which has been standardized. There's also a better way of controlling adverse events or medical errors and the costs related to those, reducing the burnout and stress on your frontline staff, and by doing that, improving their satisfaction and work engagement. And the features, the key features coming out of the platform, of course, is our goal is to drive a 100% adherence policy at any given hospital for the areas where they choose to do so or choose to aim for that. Because the platform actually gives out a secure audit trail, which can later be used literally as digital evidence that everything was done according to the protocol. And also because the frontline staff makes up the highest or largest proportion of workers in the healthcare domain, so nurses, caregivers, also informal caregivers, which are actually family members. So we would like to give them a better voice, a safety net, as I mentioned, and really a comprehensive support tool that they can use whenever and wherever they want. From the business side, the business model itself obviously is a software as a service, but the way we're pricing it is quite novel. So and it adapts to all of the different countries that we work with. So it basically is 1% of the active users' monthly salary budget, so which could be something like 15 to 20 euros or dollars in the EU or the US, but as low as $1 or €1 in developing countries. And we charge the hospitals annually, so it's actually something that they can budget for conveniently. At the moment, the countries we're working with, there are about 2 million nurses working in those countries, but the total count of nurses globally is about 30 million. So the market for this is really up to 7 billion euros a year for the whole world. And again, to summarize, so we basically provide a simple platform model with simple pricing, and it's very easy to learn. It takes less than 5 minutes for a nurse to start using it. We focus on hospital and healthcare institutions worldwide, but we also work with other health IT distributors and vendors with revenue sharing models. And we do have soft partnerships, for instance, with Philips and a number of other institutions globally. So Johns Hopkins is one of the investors in our company. In the UK, we're actually working with the NHS Innovation Agency. In Kenya, we are working with the local Red Cross, and so on and so forth. So we've been developing co-nurse for the past 3 years, and at the moment, we're already in the scaling stage. So we've implemented it, validated it at 7 different hospitals, and essentially are actually, at the moment, implementing the platform further in 7 different countries, which include Germany, the UK, Colombia, Peru, Chile, as well as Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Ukraine, and Georgia, where we did receive some government aid, so that actually we will be providing it to the first partners for free, but we are free to operate beyond those partners. Coming back to the current time, so the pandemic context. So a pandemic like COVID-19 is putting extra pressure on the healthcare systems, obviously. So the nurses are even more overwhelmed. Many of the nurses are actually getting sick, so it's adding also to the cost base, the availability base, burnout, stress, and so on. So in our case, we thought hard and long on how we can actually address that, how we can reduce stress, how we can increase engagement, and how we can cut down on the time spent on procedures. And essentially what we're developing now further is a communication feature within co-nurse, basically providing a secure chat from nurse to nurse and nurse to patient, also safe communication for the patients that are actually isolated because of the COVID risk or any other infectious disease or an emergency setting, for instance, in the hospital. So we already do support that out of the box. So in order to bring something like this to fruition, it doesn't take just one engineer with an embedded systems or semiconductor and e-learning background, but it takes a team. And I've listed our core team, which makes up about 1/3 of the whole team at the moment. So myself, so I've been running Cognius for almost 10 years now. Previously ran an e-learning business. We have 2 very bright graduates from the King's College in London, both in neuroscience, so working on the neuroscience concepts, usability, overall product features as well. So Jürgen has been working with us also for the past 10 years. He's an excellent instructional designer, so he's actually leads all of the content development that goes into co-nurse. And one of our advisors that I would like to point out is Dr. Jeremy Block, who used to be the youngest IRB chair in the US while working at Mount Sinai as well in New York. And with that, I would like to conclude and take any questions that Louis might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Andres. Please take a seat, sir. Good talk.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're about onboarding and getting that onboarding process to happen a bit faster. This has obvious benefits for cost, as you said, for safety. I mean, everything derives from safety. If it's safer, it's more cost effective and so forth. Is there any way you can quantify or give us a relative amount of how much shorter does this make the onboarding process?
Mm-hmm. So we actually have very concrete numbers from one of the hospitals in Colombia that we work with. And they provided us with their own data, which was actually great because we didn't have to go and beg for it. So we essentially did a demo to them and essentially sent our value proposition. And what we came back is that they gave us basically both temporal numbers as well as the cost. So in terms of the cost, they see that we can actually reduce it by 10 times. So what that basically means is taking something that is happening in the real world with experienced nurses as mentors. And if we can reduce that sort of one-to-one workload by about 30%, then the whole onboarding cost will actually decrease by 90%.
Okay, that's quite a decrease there. Interesting, very interesting. Your solution for healthcare professionals, is it only going to be used inside of hospitals, or could you foresee it that, I don't know, it could be used in the field potentially somehow? How do you see that growing beyond just the physical base of the hospital?
Yeah, so we've designed it to be used across the continuum of care. So that actually also pertains to our previous experiences before Co-Nurse as a product, but Cognius as a company, where we are actually able to support family members as active participants in the care team from the intensive care setting already. So they actually do some of the same things that a nurse or a physical therapist or whoever would do. And that can be transferred to the home setting. So in Estonia locally, we have a collaboration with more of a rural hospital where severe stroke patients are being supported by Co-Nurse in the post-discharge environment. So either a care home, perhaps if they can really go home. It's not always clear with severe strokes, but basically the family members are part of the care team there as well.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that application, but that makes a lot of sense. We're trying to get people up to speed quickly with what they need to help the patient or indeed their family member, and that can be a huge help.
And the hospital basically gets the feedback post-discharge, how well the family members, or we call them informal caregivers, how well they are actually engaged, how much sort of additional help and support and focus the patient is getting. And we do have really ethics committee approved studies running in parallel to that, so that we can measure the effect, the clinical, or let's say the nursing effect of it as well.
Right. Yeah, I imagine that feedback is extremely important. You can't just still, even with the app and the system that you've got, you still can't just throw it at them and say, okay, go and do it. Not only do they have to have the right disposition for that, I mean, it's extremely stressful environment, even if you're back in your own home, to have your loved one to be in that situation. So they may need coaching or guidance as well.
And the content needs to be really curated by the clinical or the nursing team. So it has to be relevant and safe to perform in another setting. So not to harm the patient.
Sure, that is pretty much the goal, I understand. Are you seeing adoption you're getting it at a hospital level or an institution level right now? Is that what you're targeting for these trials and first sort of moves?
Yeah, so at the moment we're primarily working with large health systems or health centers, I should say. And also, for instance, we are co-located both in the US and Estonia since already 2014. So we've been also working with some health systems in the US. And for health systems, meaning an organization comprising of many hospitals, could be 3, could be 20, depending on the health system. HCA, for instance, is operating more than 200 hospitals in the US. So for those types of organizations, actually, it gives you a very good kind of a unification tool or a standardization platform, so that you know that, for instance, your X-ray technicians across hospitals have the exact same, at least the exact same, base levels of skills, not experience necessarily, but at least the access to the content. And so that's also kind of an use case where we can work with other large health tech or health technology vendors, such as Philips, because they want to make sure their equipment is used in the right way. So it's not just the procedures, but it could be also a kind of an avenue for other companies who want to make sure their products are being used in the right way within the hospital.
That is interesting. Okay, we've got this difficult and complicated medical equipment that usually would still require specific training, even from an expert in the area. And then the company who sells that is invested in making sure that that operator can use it to its maximum potential. So they're like, yeah, we want this because we need the hospitals to use this to its 100% use.
So we actually work with them in a kind of a companion app model, so that at the first they don't have to develop their own kind of education and training platform, mobile app, for instance. So we do it for them, and then the app itself for a certain time period for those guys is free. But for us, it will create the visibility within the hospital. So a nurse picks it up, like, okay, I can use it for other things as well.
This thing is okay, this actually helped me, hey, do you know this thing actually worked? I can imagine even in something like healthcare, that word of mouth and, well, I guess it comes down to trust, very much in medicine. Okay, this worked, this helped us, we can trust this.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's use it more. Andres, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, sir, for your talk.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that is the end of today's session. We have been looking today of day 3 of our virtual trade mission to Estonia. And today we've been working on the HealthTech and BioTech systems. So if you would like more information about how all of this works, please stay in the app, the Impromptu Me page where you're at right now. You can make the contacts there. You can ask the questions. There is even a possibility of a one-on-one with representatives from all of the organizations who you've heard from today. We have representatives, including some of the actual speakers, available right now for you to talk to them so you can gauge them. They will answer your questions. And if there's something they can't answer in the moment, they're absolutely going to get back to you with that. So stick around, do the networking. Now, we have one more day tomorrow morning. You can join us again for our last virtual trade mission 2020 day virtual trade mission to Estonia. We've got one more morning session tomorrow, and tomorrow morning session is all about IoT, electronics, and manufacturing. We're going to see you again tomorrow morning. My name's Lewis Zezeran. Thank you.